Aaron here with Ultraliminal Consulting. Are you ready to be exceptional at your work? Are you ready to be a leader? Not sure how to get there? That's okay. This is for you. There's a lot of questions out there about how to be successful as a virtual leader. That somehow maybe leadership is different for the virtual team or the hybrid team than it is for a team that's together. And there are some things that are different. And a lot of it hinges on communication. And in communication, the reason it's more critical is because you can't just walk up to somebody and have that conversation. You don't get to see their mannerisms, their inflection points in their face. You get to, all you get is either a phone call, maybe a Zoom call, a text message, or an email. And so one of the biggest things we can do to kind of really start to ensure success off the bat is to ensure that we're exceedingly polite. Good manners and being polite and professional in all of our correspondence, no matter what it is, will earn you so much rope, it's ridiculous. So always remember that. Always be polite, always be professional, and have your staff do the same. Always, always, always. Because there's plenty of misunderstandings and miscommunications just in person-to-person interactions, let alone when you're doing it in the digital world. So you always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You always want to extend that little bit of grace and that little bit of courtesy. It goes a long way. So that's what you should always be doing first, is just always really be polite. Second, the big thing is that, like any job, you're trying to get things accomplished. And so there's mechanics that go with that. So what is it that you're trying to actually do, or what do you do? And then how do you effectively, for instance, in your case, like prioritize your tasks? And then how do you effectively delegate those tasks? And so in a regular workplace, it might be you walk up to somebody and you talk about like, hey, here's what we want to accomplish today. And I want you to go over here and do these things, and I'll come over and check on you. Well, in the virtual world, it's a little bit different. You're gonna have to communicate that in writing in some fashion, or maybe through a video, which is more speaking. But generally speaking, like you're gonna use it through a different mode, a different medium, depending on what that is. It could be a phone call, could be a Zoom call, could be a text message, could be an email. And so in that, we want to ensure that our communication is explicit. Being explicit what we expect. So for instance, our expectations, I'm going to explain to you explicitly what I want in these expectations. I want to have X accomplished in the next hour. And it needs to be at this quality standard. It needs to be at this place by this time. And I want you then to come get me so I can check it before it goes out the door. That's a boundary, actually. So we're going to set expectations, boundaries. We're going to make sure people know their resources, what those are. And that could be, in this case, it could be sending them over several links to maybe some sort of documents they might need, or access to certain information, just different things. You know what it is per task. But you want to help facilitate what's going on. And by doing that, you're giving them the ability to be successful. And then you want to follow up. And so you should be having a task list in there somewhere, and you're putting notes in there on when you should be following up. And that's coded then for follow-up times or follow-up dates. So the colors are, it's orange because it's for right now, it's today, or red, it was yesterday. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to set those boundaries, you're trying to set those expectations, you're trying to set the playing field so that way people can be successful. Because people want to be successful. Everybody wants to be on the winning team, so help them do that. And you can do that in the virtual world. It's just as easy in the virtual world as it is in the real world. It just takes a little bit more planning, a little more thorough, more thought on how you want to action that. Okay? And so the second thing, lastly, would be, well, how do people like to communicate? Or not lastly, but how do people like to communicate? And people communicating is a big one. So you have to figure out how your team communicates best. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's going to want to jump on Slack or jump onto Google Meets or a Zoom call. Some people are good with just a regular phone call. Some people are good with a text message. Some are good with just emails. It just depends. And the same thing with like some of your vendors. So it's defining like what works best for each person, different strokes for different folks. And then from there, utilizing that or actioning that properly inside what you're trying to accomplish. And then from there too, if you're communicating in such fashions and it's not personal, it's professional. Professional stuff, you're going to want to have ways to then grab that information and pull it back into the system. So that way everybody can be on that communication and everybody's up to speed and up to date on what's going on. Which comes to our last point, which means you want to democratize information as much as possible. Since you're in the virtual world and there's not a lot of crosstalk, it all has to be managed in a fashion where it's put across a system. You want people to be either on group emails, or you want them to have access to the same task list or databases, whatever it might be, where they can grab information. You're really working with folks to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful. So it's just proper resourcing, really is what it is, boils down to. And in doing that, you're trying to make sure that people understand that they have the resources available to, root out problems, build solutions, present those solutions with actionable answers, and to really have a good dialogue about what we're trying to accomplish. And so when you're looking at that, if you're not having those things, then you're going to have some serious issues with your leadership in the virtual world. You're leading to be polite, really be explicit in your communication, because it removes doubt and fear. It lets people want to action what they can action, and then they'll want to take responsibility and ownership. And that's a good thing. That's what we want to see. And then two, you make sure they have the resources they need. So make sure they have good open sources of information so they can go and research and do all those things that you want them to do. And so, but yeah, it just takes a little bit more planning, a little bit more distinguishing on what we're trying to send out and how we're going to communicate to other people, and then how we're going to bring that information back in. So same thing as before, there's just a few more mechanics to look at. So remember, be polite and professional, be explicit in your communication, and last but not least, be open with information. Democratize it. Give people access so they can make good decisions, and they can try to bring you the best solution possible. So, till next time.